Welcome to Spotlight Murders by Skoob. I'm your host, Kieran Caldwell, and today we're unraveling the haunting mystery behind one of music's most tragic losses. This isn't just the story of a legendary voice silenced too soon. It's a tale of perplexing circumstances, eerie details, and questions that refuse to fade. February 11th, 2012. The Beverly Hilton Hotel in Los Angeles, room 434. At 3:55 p.m., Whitney Houston, an icon who reached heights even Michael Jackson couldn't, was found lifeless in a hotel bathtub. But the story doesn't end there. Why was the bathwater scalding hot, an unsettling 93.5 degrees Fahrenheit? What caused those strange facial injuries? And perhaps the most chilling question of all, was Whitney truly alone in her final moments? Today, we're diving deep into the timeline, examining the evidence, and confronting the unsettling mysteries that still surround that tragic afternoon in Beverly Hills. Stay with us, because some stories echo far beyond their final notes, and Whitney still sings in the silence. To understand the magnitude of what the world lost that February day, we need to go back to where it all began. Whitney Houston wasn't just another pop star. She was a phenomenon that redefined what success looked like in the music industry. Growing up in Newark, New Jersey, during the 1970s and early 80s, Whitney was known for her spirited and rebellious nature, but it was this very defiance, coupled with her undeniable talent, that caught the attention of legendary producer Clive Davis in 1983. At just 20 years old, she signed with Arista Records, and the music world would never be the same. Her first two albums, released in 1985 and 1987, didn't just launch her career, they catapulted her into the stratosphere of stardom. She became the only artist in history to have 7 consecutive #1 singles on the Billboard Hot 100. Think about that for a moment. 7 straight #1s. Not even the king of pop himself, Michael Jackson, achieved that feat. Her albums became some of the highest selling of all time, spanning nearly 3 decades of extraordinary success. She had 6 Grammy Awards, multi-platinum status, and a voice that could move mountains. It was the ultimate Cinderella story, a girl from Newark transformed into a global icon under the guidance of Clive Davis and Arista Records. But as we know now, sometimes fairy tales have the darkest endings. Behind the glittering facade of Whitney's stardom lay a much darker reality. Whitney rose to fame during an era when record labels wielded tremendous control over their artists. The industry's demands extended far beyond her music. She faced relentless pressure to present herself in specific ways, to say the right things, wear the right clothes, and maintain an idealized image at all times. In essence, Whitney Houston, the superstar, became a carefully constructed persona, while Whitney, the girl from Newark, was forced into hiding. She became a puppet controlled by her record label, her authentic self, buried beneath layers of manufactured perfection. This constant performance, this need to maintain a false image, soon became overwhelming. Whitney found herself trapped in a metaphorical prison, living a double life as she navigated the demands of superstardom. The pressures of fame and the exhaustion of maintaining this facade eventually led her down a path from which she would never fully recover: substance abuse. Like so many other stars before and after her, Whitney's life became entangled with people who enabled her destructive lifestyle rather than challenging it. The parallels to Michael Jackson's story are impossible to ignore. Despite multiple attempts at rehabilitation, each step toward recovery seemed to compound her difficulties rather than alleviate them. This backdrop of struggle and internal conflict sets the stage for understanding what would happen in those final tragic days. The week leading up to Whitney Houston's death was Grammy Week in Los Angeles, a time that should have been celebratory for someone of her stature. Instead, it became a documented descent into increasingly reckless and concerning behavior that would alarm everyone around her. Reliable reports from sources, including the Daily Mail, painted a disturbing picture of Whitney's activities during this crucial period. On the Thursday before her death, She was reportedly involved in what witnesses described as a wild binge at the Beverly Hilton Hotel. She displayed visible signs of agitation, got into disagreements with hotel security staff, and allegedly consumed dangerous amounts of alcohol. By Friday evening, the situation had escalated. Whitney was observed engaging in heavy partying at the hotel's bar, surrounded by friends, but exhibiting behavior that was completely out of character. Witnesses noted her unusually loud and uninhibited demeanor, a stark contrast to the composed, professional Whitney Houston the world knew. Most critically, during these events, she abandoned her commitment to sobriety and began mixing alcohol with sedative drugs, a combination that could have gravely impaired her judgment and awareness. Inside her hotel suite, authorities would later discover multiple prescription medications: lorazepam, Valium, Xanax, and non-barbiturate sleeping aids. These medications, all from the benzodiazepine class, are known for their depressant effects on the central nervous system. Medical professionals would later explain that when these substances are consumed with alcohol, they significantly heighten the risk of accidental overdose or loss of consciousness by slowing brain activity and suppressing respiratory functions. Whitney's erratic behavior that Grammy weekend wasn't confined to her hotel room. At high-profile public events, she appeared confused, disoriented, and clearly under the influence of substances. Perhaps the most documented and disturbing incident occurred at Clive Davis's pre-Grammy press event. Video footage captured Whitney interrupting a red carpet interview in a slurred and erratic manner. Her speech was disjointed, her balance unsteady, and several people present noticed the strong smell of alcohol on her breath. She appeared emotionally unstable, swinging between moments of apparent clarity and obvious impairment. At another event hosted by Kelly Price, witnesses described Whitney as sweaty, tearful, and appearing disheveled. Her makeup was smeared, her attire disorderly. Despite managing to deliver what seemed like a spirited rendition of Jesus Loves Me, observers noted that her focus and energy seemed completely depleted. These weren't just signs of someone having a few drinks. Medical experts later clarified that consuming benzodiazepines in large amounts, especially with alcohol, can cause anterograde amnesia. This condition means a person may forget events occurring shortly before or during intoxication, which could explain why Whitney might not have remembered entering the bath or recognizing imminent danger. Under such heavy sedation, the body's responsiveness to temperature becomes severely compromised. A person could potentially enter excessively hot water without realizing the danger, resulting in serious burns or skin damage. This detail would prove crucial to understanding what happened in room 434. On that fateful Saturday afternoon, the tranquil atmosphere of the Beverly Hilton was about to be shattered forever. Around 3:30 p.m., Whitney Houston's personal assistant, Mary Jones, noticed something was wrong. She had been unable to contact the iconic singer for an extended period, and her growing unease finally compelled her to check on Whitney personally. Jones approached the entrance to Whitney's luxurious hotel suite and knocked several times. She was met only with silence, a silence that intensified her concern with each passing moment. Finally, she pushed open the door and stepped inside, moving cautiously through the suite, hoping against hope that all was well. The atmosphere inside was eerily still and serene, a stark contrast to the urgency Jones felt building in her chest. Her systematic search led her directly to the bathroom, where she was confronted with a scene that would haunt her forever. Whitney Houston, the woman whose voice had captivated the world, lay submerged in the bathtub. The water enveloped her face, and the position of her body suggested she had gently slid downward rather than abruptly collapsing. Her head was notably tilted back and facing westward, a detail that would become important in the subsequent investigation. But perhaps the most shocking discovery was the temperature of the water. Even long after Whitney's body was removed from the tub, the water maintained an elevated temperature of 93.5 degrees Fahrenheit. This meant that when Whitney had entered the bathtub, The water had been scalding hot, hot enough to cause serious injury to anyone with normal sensation and awareness. The bathroom scene told a story that investigators would spend months trying to fully understand. Amidst the porcelain and polished surfaces, evidence of Whitney's ongoing battle with substances was plainly visible. Multiple prescription drug bottles were scattered about the room, but more disturbing were two specific items: a small spoon bearing white crystalline residue and a mirror base with traces of powdered material. These items were carefully cataloged and photographed as part of the official investigation. They were classic paraphernalia associated with cocaine use. The urgency of the situation kicked in immediately. Ray Houston, Whitney's brother who was working as part of her security detail, quickly began CPR, desperately attempting to revive her motionless form. His swift efforts were accompanied by frantic calls to hotel security and emergency services. The 911 call reported a woman, approximately 48 years of age, found unresponsive and not breathing. The caller expressed uncertainty about whether she had fallen or simply been discovered submerged. Emergency medical personnel arrived remarkably quickly. They were already stationed at the hotel in preparation for the pre-Grammy celebrations that weekend. Despite their immediate response and advanced resuscitation techniques, Whitney Houston was pronounced dead at 3:55 p.m. The woman who had once been called the Voice was gone, found alone in a bathtub, surrounded by silence. The official ruling was clear: accidental drowning, complicated by heart problems and persistent drug use. The toxicology report confirmed the presence of cocaine, marijuana, Benadryl, alprazolam, Xanax, cyclobenzaprine, a muscle relaxant, and diphenhydramine in Whitney's system. The amount of cocaine suggested recent use before her death. But for many people, fans, media analysts, and even individuals within Whitney's inner circle, the official explanation raised more questions than it answered. First, there was Whitney's position in the tub. She was found face down and fully submerged, a position that's highly unusual for accidental drownings in bathtubs, especially among adults. Such positioning typically doesn't occur unless external factors are involved: a seizure, heart issue, or heavy sedation. Then there were the facial injuries. Investigators discovered two minor abrasions on Whitney's face, one on the left side of her forehead and another on the bridge of her nose. While these could have resulted from contact with the bathtub's hard surface, they fueled immediate speculation about a potential struggle or foul play. Most puzzling of all was the water temperature. Why would anyone willingly enter water that was hot enough to cause skin separation, a condition where the top layer of skin begins to peel due to prolonged contact with extremely hot water? Even someone under the influence of substances that could impair judgment would typically still feel such extreme heat. The unusual circumstances have given rise to several theories about what really happened in room 434 that afternoon. Some medical experts have suggested that Whitney might have been attempting to self-soothe after an anxiety attack, possibly explaining why she would run such hot water. Others theorize that the combination of substances in her system could have left her so disoriented that she was unable to recognize the dangerously high temperature of the water. But the most troubling question of all remains: was Whitney truly alone in her final moments? The confluence of sedatives and stimulants in her system created a perilous cocktail that heightened risks of heart problems, disorientation, and unconsciousness. The presence of cocaine suggested very recent use, but who was with her when she used it? The facial abrasions, combined with the bathwater's extreme temperature and the abnormal positioning of her body, continue to cast shadows of doubt over the official verdict. Could another person have been present and left the scene before help arrived? Some investigators have speculated that Whitney might have already been incapacitated before entering the water, possibly slipping into unconsciousness due to the dangerous combination of substances, then somehow ending up in the scalding bathtub. But this scenario raises its own set of troubling questions about how exactly she came to be in the water. Perhaps what makes this case so enduringly mysterious are the small, haunting details that don't quite fit together. When Mary Jones found Whitney, her makeup remained partially intact, suggesting she had been preparing for an engagement shortly before her death. Steam from the bath had created a light mist that covered the mirrors and tiles, encapsulating the room in what witnesses described as an eerie veil of quiet solitude. The positioning of her body created what several observers called a haunting, indelible image, one that lingered with everyone who saw it. There was something almost serene about her posture, which sharply contrasted with the frenzied activity that erupted just outside the bathroom door once she was discovered. The juxtaposition of her body's peaceful appearance, the residual heat of the bath, and the telltale signs of substance use created what investigators described as a sobering and sorrowful tableau. It was a stark reminder of how a global superstar's life could end in such isolation. That's our deep dive into the tragic and still mysterious passing of Whitney Houston, a voice that once filled arenas, now silenced in a quiet hotel room. But this isn't just about loss or headlines. It's about the fragility behind fame, the battles hidden from public view, and the unanswered questions that keep echoing through time. More than a decade later, the circumstances around her death in room 434 continue to puzzle and haunt those who refuse to accept easy answers. Was it a heartbreaking accident, the inevitable toll of addiction, or something darker lurking beneath the surface? Whitney Houston's story is a powerful reminder of how the pressures of stardom can overwhelm even the strongest, and how crucial it is to protect those we hold dear. The girl from Newark who rose to global stardom deserved so much more than to spend her final moments alone. Her voice, her spirit, her humanity deserved a shield that, tragically, was never there. While the full truth may never be known, Whitney's music, legacy, and the questions surrounding her final hours will continue to inspire, provoke, and resonate for generations to come. To explore Whitney Houston's story in greater depth, the unanswered questions, the autopsy reports, and how her daughter died in an eerily similar manner years later, visit the Skoob app for the full investigation. Download Skoob now on the App Store or Play Store. I'm your host, Kieran Caldwell. Thank you for joining me on Spotlight Murders by Skoob. Until we meet again, keep asking the hard questions. Sometimes the truth is stranger than fiction, and the questions we can't answer are just as important as the ones we can. Stay curious, stay compassionate, and most of all, stay vigilant.